What is going on, everybody? We're live again. We're still in the radio studio, but we're still live, baby. And we're streaming on 3 different places. The brand new Manchild Show digital programming at MC Show Digital. It's our first live show straight from our new YouTube channel. We're also streaming on my YouTube channel as well, at BoyGreenG5, and my Twitter, which also has tags to MC Show Digital, so you guys can catch it there as well. And we're here. It's Paul Esda Jr., aka Boy Green, and Jim Lurch. You're down in New York, baby.
Down in New York, baby. Go New York, go New York, go. That's the that's the motif down here. And today's topic is right in that wheelhouse, Boy Green. We're talking Knicks basketball. We've had his partner on before on the Locked On Knicks podcast. We figure let's see what the other side of this partnership is like. So we've had Gavin Shaw on before. Let's welcome in Alex Wolf, who is our Knicks insider today to talk all things Knicks, as the Knicks have advanced another game here now, Alex, for the Knicks. They survived. They got a win in the Garden. And now I think the pressure shifts a little bit to the Pacers. Give me your thoughts. Has the pressure shifted, or are the Knicks still in the pressure cooker right now?
I mean, I think it absolutely has shifted. If you're in a position, well, so first thing to consider, Pacers have not faced a game 6 yet this postseason.
Good point.
So that's one thing to consider. Thing two, the Knicks are 6-2 on the road this postseason. So, I mean, they've certainly taken care of business better on the road than they have at the Garden, unfortunately. So maybe that creates more worry for Game 7 than anything, if it should happen. But I think the pressure is on them. When you're in a closeout scenario, especially we're talking about it for a moment before the show, but Halliburton fading in the way that he did in this game where he could have closed things out, a little bizarre. I can't quite wrap my head around how he had that sort of game after the game that he had in Game 4, and just seemed completely out of it. I think some of it had to do with how the Knicks defended him. I think the Knicks defense, they embraced switching a little more. They let guys kind of own their matchups a little bit and just defend the Pacers on an island. And the Pacers just seemed a little less interested in getting, multiple off-ball actions going. It felt very different from the first 4 games of the series. And yet the Knicks also figured some stuff out on offense. It's kind of on the Pacers now to adjust to a Knicks offense where Jalen Brunson is not bringing the ball down the court, where they're not pressing him the entire length of the court and getting to tire him out that way. I think they really figured some stuff out, which is good. And props to Tibbs too. I mean, I'm not always the easiest on him, but I thought he pushed all the right buttons as far as the rotation was concerned.
Oh, compliments for Tibbs. I like it.
getting guys like DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet in there. I mean, I thought they made a big difference in this game. So, lengthening the bench has made it so the guys can be more energetic throughout the game. The Knicks did a really good job of controlling pace. Brunson was going crazy in the game. And then, Cat has pretty much owned this whole series at this point from a scoring perspective. So, I think the onus kind of falls on the Pacers here. It's their job to close this out at this point. The Knicks, I don't want to say it's house money because obviously you lose, you're out. But, I mean, at this point, they can – I think play a little looser and just say hey, if we play our game and it ends up working, we might be able to push this thing to the 7th game.
Look, every team has weaknesses, right? I just want to talk to you. You mentioned Cat, and he's a must for the Knicks, and he's an important piece of this puzzle. But there have been some real weird things going on with Karl Anthony Towns. We were talking about it on the radio show this morning. These defensive lapses where he comes out on the perimeter and does silly stuff or shoves a guy in the back and then goes, "What was that?" I mean, what do you mean, what was it? It's called a tackle, which is known as a foul in the world of the NBA. Give me your thoughts about Karl Anthony Towns and your feelings about him. He's pretty new to the Knicks, so I want to give him a little bit of a wide berth here. But at the same token, he's one of the 2 superstars, and the Knicks need him to be, a high IQ guy. We already have a bunch of those guys on this team. Jalen Brunson maybe at the front of that pack. Can Towns be that guy, or is he always just going to be this aloof guy who picks up nonsensical fouls? It didn't cost the Knicks last night, but it could have.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things you just have to – I mean, even when Cat got traded to the Knicks, I was talking to various Timberwolves people, just getting their impressions on him. And number one thing that anyone ever says when you talk about flaws with him is the fouls. And it's just I think he lacks a little bit of discipline in a way in terms of – look, I've been on record on my show saying this, and I believe it wholeheartedly. I think that he has had probably the worst whistle of anyone I've seen in this playoff so far. And granted, I haven't watched every single second of every single game, but the amount of contact that he takes on the offensive end and doesn't get called, I think that he then takes that with him and that sits in his head. And then he goes, well, if they can do that to me, then I can do that to them. Except for then he does it to someone he'll be on a switch, against a Neesmith or whatever, and then do the same thing. But of course, because he's the 7-footer and Neesmith is
immediate foul.
The big guy never gets the benefit of the doubt in that situation. I think he just, to your point, I don't know if it's IQ so much as just like lack of being able to control his emotions to a degree.
Frustration fouls,
Frustration fouls. It's that he thinks the game will be officiated evenly, and the game just it's not always kind to big men, especially when it comes to fouls. And I think that he needs to understand that. That said, he's 10 years in. I don't know if that's necessarily going away. 10 years into your NBA career, but I think you live with it as long as he doesn't foul himself out, which he's come damn close a few times, but as long as he doesn't foul himself out and he's giving you what he's giving you on offense, which is essentially an unguardable force of nature right now, and the offensive rebounding, the defensive rebounding, like everything else he's giving you, all on, a clearly bothering him left knee right now that's been bothering him for, I think, the better part of the second half of this season and the whole playoffs. You kind of just take it, I guess. It's like, that's just part of the Cat experience. And as long as he's giving you everything else that he gives you and can keep it just locked in enough with the fouls to not foul out of the game, you just kind of live with it.
Oh boy.
And here's the thing, Alex, and tell me if this is a fair thing to do. So last night, right, the Knicks win emphatically. This is probably the one game where there's no dramatics at the end of, don't worry about this. This is going to be coming back. And I look at the box score because, you sort of have takes during the game, and then you see the box score and you see if it reaffirms something. You're like, oh, that was sort of a sneaky thing in there. I see that OG Anunoby was 3 of 14 from the field. But I also saw that, again, ultimately he finished plus 15. But when I see the 3 of 14, I went like, oh, thank goodness. The Knicks won by a lot. They didn't need OG Anunoby, and he will be due in Game 6. Is that the way to look at her? Yikes. That was terrible offensively, and that the terrible offensively could continue potentially and leak into the next game.
I think OG's been a little inconsistent during the playoffs, and I think that's kind of just the experience you get with him. Like, it feels like he's either massively on or like massively off on offense, but the process is always pretty much the same with him, which at that point you just, to quote a terrible sports franchise, you just trust the process in that one, and hope that it pays off. I think like he's taking good threes. He ironically sometimes gets into a mode where you almost like the shots that you think are out of his wheelhouse end up being the best ones. Like, he's really, throughout the back half of the season, really mastered this like step back three that he's been able to pull off, which is great. And was not something that I previously thought was in his bag. So, I don't know. I'm not sounding any alarm bells. I do think he's due. I think that he's proven that he can swing a game. Like, I think that he's been one of the biggest bellwethers for the Knicks in terms of, like, if he scores 20 plus in a game, you could feel pretty good about their chances of winning that game, because you can pretty much guarantee now that you're going to get 20 plus out of Cat and out of Brunson, no matter what. I mean, the crazy stat last night that came up on the broadcast, I think, was Brunson and Cat are the first pair of teammates since Kobe and Shaq to have 20 plus each in the first 5 games of a conference finals.
Wow.
And only the third duo of all time to ever do that, along with, I think, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor and Kobe and Shaq, which is crazy company to be in.
Yeah.
So you've got those 1 and 2 options. It's kind of just on someone else any given game to step up as the third option. Now, whether that's generally you're going to look and you're going to say it's got to be either Mikal or it's got to be OG. As long as you get decent production out of one of those two guys, I think your chances go up exponentially, because now also you're getting good production out of the bench. You're getting, if Josh Hart continues coming off the bench in his best moments, he's going to get you some key buckets on the inside. Deuce McBride has been shooting really well and playing pretty well overall throughout this whole postseason. So, I think OG, to get back to the original crux of this, I'm not I'm not worried about the shooting performance. I do think he's due, and I think that what he's doing sets him up for success. Like, he's playing within the flow of the offense. He's not hijacking, and he's not doing some of this. There was a little bit of worry for me early in this series where he seemed. I've always had like the smallest little worry about OG's sense of offensive self-worth since he got traded to the Knicks, which, like, when he got traded from the Raptors, there was a lot of reports out there that, like, he thought his role wasn't big enough with the Raptors and that he wanted to be more of a primary option on a team. And we've seen that he got that opportunity a little bit with Brunson out this year and seized it and did really well at the end of the regular season.
30-point games. And one of the things, I just interrupt you for a second here, Alex, I'll let you continue your thought, is remember when OG first came over, when they made that trade, the Knicks couldn't lose when he was in the lineup. And then he got hurt for a little bit, and then he started losing games. Then he came back and they started winning again. He seemed to be this little piece of cement, this little piece of moxie that the Knicks really needed. And we know he's a 3-and-D guy, just like Bridges, and that's what New York is hoping to get out of those two guys. But he's been an important guy for the Knicks, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's always additive. I mean, you know that no matter what, you're going to get the defense regardless. And you know that's part of what made like the game one choke job so like hurt so bad is that you could watch and you literally it was just OG like shut his brain off in those final like 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
And that ultimately cost them the game, I feel like, because there were a number of defensive lapses where he just didn't come out to Neesmith on those threes. I always mix those two up. I don't know why.
Yeah, me too. It's the end.
It's the two end names. But yeah, it didn't come out to Neesmith on some of those ones he made. And, you know, he's so key to what this team does on the defensive end because you can either put him on a top offensive option on the other side like a Siakam, or his defense off the ball is as elite as anybody in the NBA. So that's the other thing too, is even when he's not like making the shots on offense, you know that as long as he's locked in, you're going to get elite defense out of him for every minute he's on the floor. And that's always going to be additive no matter what.
You know, you've seen some of the comments. We're popping them up on the screen there. John threw up a good one there, and I'm going to kind of ask a question around that. And he says, you know, hope they let him play the next game and it's not a million fouls called. You know, what about the physical nature of this series? What have you seen so far from the officials? Do you like what you've seen? And does it play to either team's advantage or disadvantage if it's called a particular way? How do you think Game 6 will go down?
Yeah, I've not been the kindest to the officials during this series. And I mean, look, I acknowledge that, you know, I try to approach things as objectively as I can, but I'm never going to fully be objective because I am a fan of the Knicks. And
of course,
that's always going to show through a little bit. So I'm probably going to be a little biased one way or the other. But what I've noticed, and that maybe changed a little bit in Game 5, is that they were allowing it in some facets to be extremely physical. I mean, there was a number of times where if you go back and look at the plays, like Neesmith getting into Brunson's body, it's like, I don't know, is that fully clean every time or is it not? You know,
so much contact.
Yeah, OG was getting, I think it was part of what was frustrating him a little bit early in the series. I thought he was getting a really bad whistle as well. I already mentioned, I think Cat's been getting one of the worst whistles in the NBA this whole postseason.
Yes.
In terms of like the amount of opportunities he's creating at the rim and the amount of contact he's absorbing, but not really selling, I guess. Like he's not selling the contact well enough, I guess. And I guess that's really the key here. You know, I think that there was a certain mentality of let them play, but then also certain times where all of a sudden there would just be a real ticky-tack foul. And like the times when Brunson has gotten into foul trouble, I look at that and I go, yeah, I guess like by the letter of the law, that's a foul. But like, why are you calling that when you weren't calling things on the other side? I think there definitely needs to be more consistency. I'm curious who the ref is going to be, or the crew chief is going to be in the next game. Mm-hmm. I was honestly really surprised. I think it was Zarbo was on the game last night and
I think you're
called it completely differently than he called Game 1.
Yes,
which was bizarre as well. So I don't know if the league is maybe talking to them and saying, hey, like, or the officials amongst themselves are saying, hey, maybe things are getting a little out of control with the physicality at this point, and we need to kind of reel these guys back in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm always going to approach it from the perspective of I like the Knicks and I'm going to notice things more there. But to me, it's felt something's just felt a little off to me in certain games in this series in terms of how the officiating goes one side to the other, what's a foul, what's not a foul. And I think it's been a little hard for the players to understand what's a foul and what's not a foul. And that probably applies to both sides of the equation. So,
see, Alex, if you listen to my radio show the last 15 to 20 years, I've been on the air for 24 years in Central New York. You'll know that I am an electronic strike zone fan in baseball. All right. And I just, it makes me ill still to this day that baseball is still, tinkering. We're still testing. We've used it in the minors. I want a completely electronic strike zone because I don't like the judgment of the home plate umpire and how it changes at bats, which changes games. People don't see it because, it's just a strike or a ball. It makes a huge difference, a 2-1 count, a 3-1 count to a 1-2 count, an 0-2 count. It changes everything, which changes the game. I have argued in recent weeks, I've argued for years, but I've brought it up in recent weeks in these playoffs, how the officials do tend to let players play a little bit more, but then you get lost in this haze of what's a foul and what's not. And it's just my belief, honestly, that referees, all of them, I'm not going to give one single guy credit. Every single one of them are human beings who are not capable, in my opinion, of calling accurate basketball at the pro level because of the speed of the athletes and the athleticism, and you just can't be in the perfect position. It's almost an impossible task. I wish I had an electronic strike zone or a tennis cyclops for these guys. I don't. So is there any remedy? Because a lot of times, a lot of our fans who come in to watch NBA in the playoffs see that stuff. They see it can sometimes decide games, and they get frustrated. They say, what am I watching here? This is just about officials. It's not about the players. How do you answer that question? I know it's a big diatribe I gave you there. Sorry.
I was just say this goes well beyond just the Eastern Conference.
It really
Finals.
does. It does.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a delicate balance, right? I think, just in the macro of refereeing in the NBA and how it's progressed, like, I appreciate that they've introduced coaches challenges. I think that's been big in terms of keeping the refs honest to a degree. Although then there's even been some times in this series where they show the replay 100 times and I go, okay, yeah, that should be overturned. And then it gets upheld and you go, well, what were they watching? I don't fully understand it. But I think one thing that they could do, and, the only thing here is that you risk the pace of the game just getting so bogged down at that point. But I do think that it's like a little too punitive with the way that they've structured the coaches challenges, where you get the first one and it doesn't cost you a timeout, but then to my understanding, you do the second one and then it does cost you a timeout, even if it's successful. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense to penalize, especially if you get it right, so it's like, hey, how dare you call us out for getting the wrong call? You get one less timeout now down the stretch of this game. I think ultimately maybe what has to happen, and I mean, they've sort of started working this in a little bit with where there's the reviews after shots are made or whatever, where they can go back and go, oh, they watched that shot from 2 minutes ago. It got called a 3, but in fact, the guy's foot was on the line. We're going to adjust the score live in game. We're seeing that start to come up. Maybe it's just, they have the teams in Secaucus that are watching the games all the time, that are constantly monitoring these feeds and monitoring what's going on in the games. Maybe you start allowing the replay office to initiate a stoppage in play remotely and say, hey, that was blatantly wrong. We have the angle to prove it. Like, here, fix this call, and make it more definitive and like bang, bang. Like, and that's how you can kind of maybe only make that happen in the final 3 minutes of games or something.
Yeah,
but again, then you risk, it's like the same thing as what's going on with like the Hack-a-Mitch stuff right now.
Yeah. Oh, that annoys me. That drives me crazy. Don't get me going down that road right now.
Yeah. I mean, it makes the product unenjoyable. So there's like a real balance there of how do you balance making sure that the calls are correct versus making sure that your entertainment product is entertaining. I don't envy the people that are going to make those decisions and ultimately try to find the answer to that, because I don't think there's anything that you can do that's an easy fix to that. Yeah. But I do think that like a little bit more oversight could be helpful, as long as they find ways to streamline it and not make it take sometimes there's a challenge on a call and it takes them 10 minutes to deliberate and it just completely kills the flow of the game. So I maybe there just needs to be some way that they can expedite that process a
Yeah,
little bit.
I'll tell you what, I was more than golf clapping Stan Van Gundy last night, who I think was the one in the broadcast crew that was addressing the hack and Mitch saying, and he said, fans don't want to see this. And I don't either. My partner and I have argued about this, and I've said, I don't care that it's Robinson. If it were the other way, I'd be screaming from the rooftops the exact same way, even though I'm a Knicks fan. It's bad for basketball. Bad for basketball. And I know college has changed that rule up a little bit to change it, right? We don't have to go off on that, but I just got to get it off my chest because it drives me nuts.
That makes sense. Hey, learn how to hit a free throw. That's part of the basketball game too. But that's neither here nor there.
That's the answer, right? Learn how to hit a free throw. Right.
Okay. By the way, we got 150 plus people in the room. Appreciate it. We're streaming live in 3 different places. Make sure you guys subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. That is at MC Show Digital for all kinds of cool content just like this. If you have a question for our talented guest here, Alex Wolf, make sure you guys hit it up in the comment section. We can see it live here as we're streaming on this channel. So, guys, we're here for a few more minutes, so make sure you guys continue to send all of your commentary in. We'd love to highlight some of that during our conversation here. And now now we have Game 6 tomorrow night. Ultimately,
level of faith. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so that's really it. I want to start there at confidence level. Confidence level heading into Game 6. The Pacers win, it's over. The Knicks win, you push it to that Game 7, which would be back at the Mecca.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm doing my best to temper expectations, but I am daring to dream again. So at least my dreaming part of my brain has been reawakened again. It was definitely, obviously when you look at the numbers of teams that go down 3-1, 97 point something % of the time do not advance.
Right, only 13 teams have overcome that in NBA playoff history.
Right, enough to make you a little, a little bit cautiously optimistic, right? But that said, this is a team that's done a lot of historic comeback type stuff in this offseason, right? Actually, it's really funny. There's a very similar win percentage assigned to teams that have gone down 20 plus in a playoff game. Typically have only won those games about 3% of the time, and yet the Knicks have done it 3 times in this postseason.
Well, aren't we the only team that has come back from 20 points 3 times in playoffs in the history of the NBA?
That's true.
And the only team that blew a 20-point lead with less than I don't want to relive it, but
14-point lead.
Game 1 of the series.
14-point lead under 3 minutes to go.
Okay, so it's a lot of firsts.
But yeah, I cited it earlier, but the Knicks 6-2, I believe, on the road in this postseason, and that they're a team that has played in elimination games before. They've played up in series, they've played down in series, they've done a little bit of everything these last 3 years, and obviously they're further than they've ever been at this point. And that who knows? I think they have as good a chance as any. I think that home court, at least for these 2 teams, has been almost meaningless throughout these playoffs. Both of them have been really good on the road. And that's shown through in this series. The Knicks took the first game in Indiana in this one and did it somewhat convincingly. It only ended up being a 6-point margin by the end, but I think that, they inspired about as much confidence as you could there. And this Game 5, I think they found something in terms of ways to exploit the Pacers and ways to kind of neuter what they want to do on offense. And if they're able to keep that up, then maybe they can force a Game 7. Then Game 7, all bets are off. It's just whoever comes out and wants to win that game the most is going to win it. We saw that last year. The Pacers came out and smoked them at the Garden in the first half. And maybe the Knicks could have come back in that game. Maybe they couldn't have, who knows, because Brunson broke his hand and it was just, it wasn't even worth entertaining in the second half at that point of last year's Game 7. But yeah, confidence level wise, I don't know. I guess I'll call it a coin flip, 50-50. If they come out and look as good as they did in this Game 5, they've got a really good shot of winning this game in Indiana and forcing a Game 7. If they come out looking like they have in some of the other games in this series, like Game 4, for example, definitely not as confident at that point. So I guess we'll see, but it's all going to, I think, hinge on what kind of energy they come out with early. And it honestly, Brunson making shots early has a huge ripple effect on how this team is able to play offense and get other players involved. So if he comes out shooting on fire like he did in Game 5, I give them I think, a really, really good chance of potentially winning that
Guys,
game.
last year I was in Pittsburgh when the Indiana Knicks, the back end of the Indiana Knicks series was going on. I think my son was graduating. I think it was graduation. I think,
Oh, okay.
Green. I think it
All
was
right.
all about graduation. And I went to a Frank Caliendo comedy show. All
Sure.
right.
That's
And that
always
was, at like 7 o'clock or something at night. And then I got out and we were late in the game 7, when all that crazy bad stuff happened. And it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, man, come on. Like, that's got to flip next year. And then the Towns trade happens. And I don't know, man, I'm just still living in a sea of optimism. And even if they don't win this series, Alex, I'm still feeling like this is progress. Ultimately, let me ask you that question as my last question.
Yeah.
Would it be progress for the Knicks, even if they don't win this series, whether it gets to 7 or not? Is this progress for the Knicks? Should Knicks fans be happy? Because it feels like a lot of people are going to be disappointed if they don't win this series, because they feel like they were the higher seed. They're better than the Pacers. We got to get past the Pacers. They beat us last year. I still think it's progress. What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely progress. I mean, you advance another round, right? I mean, you can't argue that doing something that you did for the first time in a quarter century, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, is not progress, right? And obviously the expectations change, though. I think that's where things get different this offseason versus past off seasons. Like the first year they run up against that super hot Heat team. The Heat beat them in the second round, even though people thought the Knicks should have won that series too. And ultimately, you see the Heat go on to the finals, whatever. I guess that's validation in a way that they were able to pull that off that year. But, you kind of look at that one and you're like, well, it's the first year with Brunson, first year with this core group, whatever, give them another year. And then last year they make the Anunoby trade, to your point earlier in the show, like they go insane for that month of January. They look like a team that could win the championship. And then the injuries all set in. Randall dislocates the shoulder, Anunoby hurts the hamstring and everything else. And the elbow chip prior to that, all that stuff that derails things a bit. Brunson obviously breaks his hand in game 7 against Indy. And you just go, well, what can you do at that point? Like when you have that many injuries, Mitchell Robinson gets intentionally injured by Embiid in one of the scummier plays I've ever seen in my life, which I'll never let go of. But it's just last year, it almost felt like house money, because once all those injuries piled up, you go, well, whatever they can do at this point. If they had made the Eastern Conference Finals last year, they probably get just absolutely smacked by the Celtics and probably just get swept. Nice, easy off to the side sweep. So advancing to where they did this year, look, they've stayed healthy all postseason. So I think you can finally have an answer of like, if healthy, is this team a Eastern Conference Finals team? Yeah. There's the issue of, and I go back and forth on this, but like a team in its first year together and the chemistry issues that presents, like we see often, there's not too many teams that get assembled in 1 year and win a championship anymore. In the NBA, I think the drilling process is real. Everything has to be executed in the 3-point era to such a high level on both ends of the floor that sometimes guys do need like 2 full years to understand each other's games and know where to be on the floor, how to communicate with one another, whatever. There's levels to it where you go, hey, maybe they deserve a little grace in that regard of, like this is a brand new group that had never played together before, in terms of 2 really huge players that played huge minutes, and Kat and Mikhail that get inserted onto this team this year and are asked to do a lot for this team. So it's progress is the short answer. Yes, it is.
Okay.
But I do think that now that the Knicks have invested everything that they have into this team, which namely is, I hate to put this on him because it's not really fair to him what it costs to acquire him, but like the Bridges trade was kind of the one where like, that's where you pushed a lot of chips in. You didn't have to give up a lot of players, but you had to give up those draft picks that are obviously valuable in trades. And now you don't have to potentially make the team better.
Yep.
I think they're going to have, even with this historic finish and getting somewhere they haven't been in so long, they still are going to have to look at things. Leon Rose is going to Brock Aller, all the Brain Trust, Worldwide West, all them are going to have to look at things more existentially than ever before and say, what's our window? How long are we willing to go with this team? At what point do we have to dip into the super deadly second apron, which is going to be the super team killer? If I was a Boston fan right now, I'd already be like kind of shaking a little bit thinking about how that's going to affect my team, because they're going into the punitive zone of the second apron, where you start like having your draft pick automatically put to the end of the first round. trade restrictions get insane, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff just from a salary cap perspective that's going to make it really hard to keep teams together for a long time now. So from the perspective of the Knicks, even with getting as far as they did, I think they're going to have to take a really hard look at, like, did Tibbs maximize this roster that we gave him this year? Do we think that he's the right coach, or do we think he's the coach before the coach? Do they just need another year to really get things locked in, or is there something fundamentally that we need to change with this team? And then you also look at, I think part of the rationale of acquiring Cat was this is a guy that makes the new normal for a max salary in the NBA. It's the only guy the Knicks have on the team that makes that amount of money. Is he the right max salary guy to potentially be the second guy to Jalen Brunson? Or do you try to get as aggressive as you can and go after someone else this offseason, like perhaps a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and give up all the rest of whatever else you have, plus some of your young players, plus Karl Anthony Towns, whatever, maybe find a third team to get involved and move assets around? Is that something you entertain? It's just a lot of stuff to consider. But luckily that's not my job.
I don't want another one of those Carmelo Anthony trade, the whole roster trades.
Wait. Whoa. Before we just say no to that, let me, first off, two things here. First off, J-Boy, appreciate you gifting a Boy Green Coffee Club membership. You have 251 raffle tickets. I have no idea what sounder we're going to do for the Manchild version of this. We'll work on that behind the scenes of a cool sounder. So J-Boy, appreciate that. You just gifted a membership, and that went to Will M. So Will M, thank you very much. But also, I want to work back to this, Alex. You just talked about it, and there's been some whispers about it. We talked about it on the radio show earlier. Frank Isola joined the Rich Eisen show, and Rich asked Frank, like, how do you, no teams, he didn't say, like, he didn't give a slant in the question. He just said, how does this Giannis thing turn out? And then Frank went through this very deep answer, and then ultimately said, I'll give you the slices of the pie, what it looks like. 51% Giannis returns to the Milwaukee, and they figure it out. 30 or 35% chance that he goes to Houston. There's all these deeper connections to Houston and the assets they have. And they said the last pocket I'm going to give to the Knicks and Nets, like some New York team figuring this out. And he didn't really go into great detail about that, but you just brought it up. So, Alex, if the Knicks were going to make a trade for Giannis, what does that look like? Give us a sense of the pieces involved.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is stuff I'm gonna have to, like, really dig into for off-season content if and when that ends up unless they win the championship, in which case everyone's untouchable because you get they're immortals at that point.
It's so complicated because of the aprons and the money that it's you just like to say, hey, these players would all put this package of players together and that'd be worth it. You can't do that because you have all this 1-for-1 stuff. The apron's complicated, so on and so forth.
So basically, the TLDR version of the way that the aprons work and everything, and the restrictions that would be in place here is like the Knicks would not be able to bring back more money than they send out. The Bucks, I believe, also because of the situation they're in, would not be able to bring back more money than they send out. So you'd probably have to get a third team involved. Probably what ends up happening in that case, you get a team involved that would want Cat. You take whatever assets you get for Cat from whatever team that is that thinks that he will, be the piece for them, and you reroute those to Milwaukee, and then you end up getting Giannis, is basically how it works. I think the Knicks could, and then obviously send out your own swaps, and I think one more draft pick opens up for them this offseason, stuff like that. It would probably almost guaranteed have to be a 3-teamer. And there's also, you would probably want to officially do it in the new league year. Then you get the ability to do what the Knicks did last year, which is sign and trade a few guys for $1 more than the minimum salary, because you're not allowed to aggregate minimum salaries anymore. So you can sign guys for like whatever the minimum, let's say the minimum is $2 million. You can sign them for $2 million and $1 to send them somewhere else and make the salary obligations match up. So that's why they have Brock Aller in the front office. I mean, he's a genius. He's like the cap wizard, perhaps the preeminent cap wizard in the NBA. If I could be so bold, he's done so many great things for the Knicks to help them just maximize the margins over the last, 5 years since Leon Rose has taken over. So yeah, I think that's ultimately how it would work. It would probably be Cat would be the big salary going out for the Knicks to mostly make things match up. And then you just finagle whatever smaller salary pieces you can. Now, whether Milwaukee wants to give it a try again with being like, no, maybe we could still be a playoff team with Cat. Maybe they say that, but I feel like they'd probably be like, no, let's just try to rebuild and start fresh. And so then you reroute Cat somewhere else. That's the most likely way. Maybe there's a weird world where they say, and I can't see doing this just based off how they've played in the postseason. And but maybe where they say, hey, we want to keep Cat. You could probably make it work then if you do OG and Mitch. That roughly gets you to Giannis's salary price point. But I don't really see that happening. I think they would want to build this team that is ultra switchy and ultra defensive minded, whatever, with the ability to still score, which Giannis can do on the inside, till the sun goes down. And your 3-point shooting maybe takes a little bit of a hit, but he's a better distributor than Cat is. So the driving and kicking from Giannis with all those shooters around, I feel like that's what you would want to embrace as a team philosophy. But again, what do I know? It's not ultimately my job to figure that out. But
that's true. All right. Well, fair enough. We have 200 people in the room. Again, like the video, hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube at MC Show Digital. We'll end here, Alex. We'll go around the room. Predictions for Game 6. We've got Game 6. We're here on a Friday. It's on Saturday night. Pacers, Knicks. Pacers win, it's over. They go to the NBA Finals. Knicks win. We have a Game 7 on Monday night. Give us your official prediction, Alex. Pacers, Knicks, Game 6. What happens?
I can't pick against the Knicks, man. So I'm going Knicks win, tight one, I don't know, 5-point game, something like that. Knicks pull it out. They gut it out. They get it to Game 7. Then all bets are off. Anything can happen. But I will say, if they win Game 6, you better freaking win Game 7, man. Like, do it for these fans.
How painful, right? Yeah.
Do it for these fans. Do it for everyone that's hung with this team for the last forever. I mean, there are people who are full-grown adults that are out of college that have never seen the Knicks at this level before. So it's been a long time coming. So yeah, just I think they can win it. I'm going Knicks win it, and then hopefully take Game 7 on Monday. But yeah, of course it's basically a coin flip. But I'd be a bad fan if I didn't say I think the Knicks take it.
I like that. Lurch. Go ahead.
I heard Spike Lee on the pregame show say he'd give up his Academy Award, one of his Academy Awards.
I heard that. That's funny.
For a Knick title. Yeah. I want Game 7 so badly, so I'm going to pick the Knicks to win Game 6 because I just want to see this series go to 7 regardless of who wins. I just want to see a Game 7. I think the NBA could use this. The fans could use this. And even if we go down in Game 7, which would be, as Alex was saying, just so bad, I want to see it. I want to see Game 7. So, and I think the Knicks can beat them there. So I'm going to say Knicks. I had the same prediction at the end of the radio show, Knicks by 5. So Alex and I are on the same page.
I also am predicting Knicks win, but I don't think it ends up happening like this last game where there's either way. I don't think the Pacers end up just bashing the Knicks with a hammer, and I don't see it the other way. I think it's a close game, which again, both fan bases going, we shoulda, coulda. And then we have that Game 7, and then we'll see what happens with all the marbles out on the table. It should be fascinating. Well, Alex, we've done this so many times with your co-host, Gavin, and now we've collected all the Infinity Stones here. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us, having some conversation, and in video form, too. Hey, you beat Gavin to the punch there. So next time you guys are at the Thanksgiving table, feel free to brag about that you beat him there first. Yeah.
Cool. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Right.
And happy.
All right, there he is. Alex Wolf, that's the Locked On Knicks podcast. You ought to check that out. Him and his co-host, Gavin Shaw. We have had Gavin on our radio show, and we'll be bringing him to the digital platform from time to time as well. So you get a chance to check in with him as well. That was good stuff, Boy Green. I enjoyed that.
100%. And thanks to the fans. Again, 200 plus in the room right now. Thank you so much for showing all your support. Again, if you're watching on my YouTube channel right now, Boy Green's YouTube channel, there's going to be an occasional cross-pollination where we're doing stuff like this. Normally, you guys aren't getting Knicks exclusive content on my YouTube channel, but this is a perfect opportunity for you to be introduced to what we're doing and hop on over. Again, that's at MC Show Digital. I highlighted it earlier on the screen. It's the pinned comment right now on YouTube. I'll highlight it right now for more content just like this in this new world with my radio partner here, Jim the Manchild Lurch. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the ad. It is at MC Show Digital, or just simply search for the Manchild Show Boy Green Digital on YouTube and subscribe. We got like 50 subscribers right now. The channel is growing like nobody's business, but this was the first live video alert, so we'll always have this.
Love it. Awesome. All right. Thanks for everybody for being part of it. I hope you enjoyed the content. And we're going to have content about all different kinds of stuff. It's not always going to be the Knicks, obviously, but the Knicks, the hot commodity right now. All right, everybody. Peace out. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you. Take care.